every brand and company has the ability to be a software company or have some sort of software or web presence. I believe that you can use AI to create websites or digital experiences. Can you build like a digital experience that people can interact with that's attached to your brand, that people are genuinely going to want to share?
And welcome back to Long Run Labs. We have Jason Kuperberg joining on the podcast today. Jason, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Thanks, John. Super excited to be here, dive into AI, software, and the intersection of software and running a little bit.
I love it. I've been wanting to have this conversation with somebody for a long time. And then we got connected a few weeks ago and had a lengthy chat. And we're like, we should keep this going and record it. So here we are.
Here we are.
All right, first question is a tough one as always. Who is Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to introduce myself and describe myself by like the three buckets of things that I do. So the first bucket is startups and AI and entrepreneurship and software. The next bucket is where running comes in. It's running, health, wellness, endurance sports. And then the third bucket is Jewish community. And those three buckets, I think, are all things that you and I both share. And pretty much every single thing I do in work, pleasure, free time, all my people in some way intersect with one or more of those three buckets.
I love it. I talked with, I had a conversation with former CEO I worked for who is an Orthodox Jew, father of four, and CEO of a company. And I was like, how do you do all of it? He's like, I say no a lot, and everything that I do say yes to falls within work, volunteering, or religion. Yeah, and so it's like, those are the three things where he says yes. And yeah, it's interesting to hear you outline it so succinctly and similarly as well.
Yeah. And it's something I've developed, right? That I haven't always been able to describe it so succinctly, but like I've been developing that over time. And I've realized, right, you only have limited time in a day. So everything that I am doing, I want to contribute to what I care about and what I'm really passionate about.
I'm going to add how to say no more to the topics that we're going to discuss today. But let's start on the second one you mentioned, which is running. How did you find running, or how did running find you?
Yeah, running, I think, is like the thread that weaves together my entire life. I remember, or at least maybe I don't even remember this, but I remember hearing about it when I was young. My parents would push me in the jogger running around the neighborhood. Then as I got older, I would bike with them. Then I would run to the end of the street and back a mile. I ended up running my first 5K when I was, I think, 8 maybe in elementary school. Kept running 5Ks, did cross country and track in middle school, high school, and then ultimately didn't run in college. And I think that was actually really great because it exposed me to so many other things. But I always loved in high school the summer training where we were just doing long runs. We were in the park on the trails. So when I stopped running like on a team, I was like, okay, this is my opportunity. I always knew that I wanted to run marathons, go longer. So I ran my first marathon my freshman year of college, ran a bunch more throughout college. I actually did triathlon in college at Syracuse University on the triathlon club, and have kept running. And it's ebbed and flowed in different ways. When I was living out in Palo Alto, I was training with the Peninsula Distance Club, super cool group. And then I kind of took a little bit of a break, and I was really just running for mental health and wellness when I was starting my company. And then recently, I have a bunch of guys and tons of friends in New York who I run with all the time, and running is now like my social and my exercise and everything. And it's really cool to think about like the ways that my relationship with running has changed throughout my life and throughout the different things that I've been doing.
What's the flavor of running at the moment? You said you're running with groups in New York. What's the vibe of running in New York City in 2025?
So I would say The vibe of New York of running in New York City is different than Jason's vibe of running in New York City. I think the vibe in New York City is everyone thinks about these massive groups that are running all around the city, and I think that's really positive. It's getting more people into running, but I also it's also can be a little bit much. So my preference is to find a couple friends to run with. So I have my Fun Run Friday Upper West Side Fun Run Club that I run with. I have a bunch of guys who do ultras, and um, one of the fun things that I've really been enjoying running wise recently is doing these like running projects, I'm calling them. So like one example that many folks have done is running the perimeter around Manhattan. That's like 35 miles or so. Or I was moving out of my apartment on the Upper West Side, and I decided I wanted to do one of the every single streets run. So I ran every single street on the Upper West Side in like 36 hours before I moved out of my apartment.
That's fun. It's like adding these non-time based carrots that help us, have goals, and they're just like crazy fun and unrelated to like breaking 3 hours in a marathon or running 100 miles or whatever it is. I love that. Why did was there a specific reason you're focusing on projects like this, or was there like some sort of burnout you were trying to get through?
Yeah, definitely a little bit burned out. A couple of years ago, I ran my like marathon PR. I ran 2:46. Then I was in even better shape. I think I could have run under 2:40, but COVID canceled my races. Then I started the company, and which we'll get into a little bit. And I was super busy, and I was definitely a little burned out. Then, kind of as I was getting more into it, I actually took a break from Strava for like a year, and I ran without a watch for a year. And now I've been getting back into it, starting to do a few races, a couple big ultras coming up in the next year or so that I'm looking forward to. But it's really just I love running, and whenever I notice that it's becoming a bit of a burden or too stressful, it's like, okay, how can I take a step back? And these projects have just been a way to bring the fun back to them. I'm not worried about a specific time, hitting a specific pace, doing a specific workout. I can just go out and run with my friends for 3 hours.
I love that. All right, let's talk about business and the AI side of things. OtherSide AI or Hyperwrite. Let's talk about that. I also want to tease Roast My Strava, which is something that
Yeah.
you created, and we're going to get into that. And I've had a lot of fun roasting my own Strava, and it's like corny-ish, but also like pretty on point. So I'm gonna dangle that carrot out there as a like you got to keep listening to get to the really good stuff. But let's dive into the good stuff of AI, and then we'll evolve that into running meets AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into AI, and specifically, we're talking here generative AI, LLMs, uh, ChatGPT is
Can you
how I run.
define what all of that is first?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that's like these are the AI models that are behind things like ChatGPT, and essentially what they're doing is they're stringing together tokens. A token is a word or a part of a word, and they're able to do that to write text or write code or produce some sort of output. And there are these AI models that are trained on essentially all the text content that's on the internet. And so I got started in this space back in 2020. My co-founder of the company of OtherSide AI, Matt, had been working even further back with these models. It was essentially a precursor to ChatGPT. It was like right on this tipping point of where these models could start putting together words in a somewhat coherent way. So this was 2020. This was 5 years ago. It was very different than what we have today, where you can just go onto Google, go onto ChatGPT, and test out the latest models. But we identified that it was kind of hitting this turning point. Matt had started using it to write some emails and things like that. And if you kind of look at it from a bit more of a technical standpoint, you could see that we were on this exponential growth curve for the size and capabilities of these models. So we said, okay, we see that this is going somewhere. These models are going to become even more capable, even better at writing code over the next few years. The time to get into it is now, while they're still like getting there a little bit. Because if we can learn all about them and figure out the best ways to put them into products for people, we'll be super well suited for when the models are very capable down the road now. So this was, again, 2 years before ChatGPT came out. We got early access to one of the OpenAI models, GPT-3 at the time, used it to create some demos, posted them online, just of AI writing emails, AI writing code. And we had a bunch of investors reaching out, and they said, like, okay, you guys clearly know what you're doing with these models. This is a technological shift. Are you starting a company? Like, what's going on here? What are you doing? And we're like, all right, guess we're starting a company. Let's do it. And that was 5 years ago. And since then, we've created a bunch of products that I'm happy to get into, and we've raised millions in venture capital money and gone through that route and learned so much. And I think we can go back a little bit, but the thing that stands out to me is that in those 5 years, AI has not just become like the latest technological revolution, shift, change, new thing, but it's also this cultural moment. And I think it was like keying onto that cultural thing, which is where projects like Roast My Strava come into play as well.
So what happens next?
With AI or with
No,
Jason?
with Jason's story. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, we still operate the company. We have a product called Hyperwrite that has millions of users. It's a great company doing well. I think that's become a little bit like what we offer. When we were doing it before ChatGPT came out, it was like it was the introduction to AI writing and research that many people had ever experienced. And over time, as everyone has gotten into AI, I've sort of become, I don't know if like disillusioned is the wrong word, but just like a little bit burnt out of trying to compete with everyone, because I feel like I was there early and people recognize that. And now it's like everyone's doing it. So I've started to really think about, okay, how can I take what I've learned about AI and building products and software and apply them to other spaces. And a great example of that is the running and endurance sports space, whether that's on products that people are using, websites that people can go on and use right now, or another place that I'm really passionate about is like the actual operation of companies.
When did the idea for Roast My Strava come into play? Was it the like, I want to use the tool and create something?
Yeah, so it's a good story, actually. I'm always thinking of ideas, right? Any good entrepreneur is always thinking of new ideas. So I would be running around Central Park, passing hundreds, thousands of people, and I would say, what can I build for all these runners? What can I build for everyone? And I combined that idea with something else. I'm kind of perpetually online, like always paying attention to trends and things. And I saw this trend where people were saying we're using ChatGPT to roast their Instagram. So they take a screenshot of their Instagram feed, send it to ChatGPT, yeah, and say,
Definitely
like,
did
roast.
this, yeah.
Yeah, this is like a huge trend. And then I don't know exactly how it popped into my mind, but I was like, oh my gosh, like I can kind of automate that, make that so much easier. I can like build it specifically for a very specific niche community of runners and cyclists. I'd actually used the Strava API for a project like many years back, just like it wasn't even something that I released. It was just I was building custom heat maps because I thought it was cool and fun. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. It's super easy to use the Strava API, gather some information about a user's profile, their recent activities, and put it through a large language model with a prompt and roast them. And it was a few different ideas, kind of why I wanted to do it, right? That was like the spark for the idea. But then I also sort of wanted to prove to myself that like, hey, I can build something from scratch, build something new. Like I have this company, but I want to try to do it on my own and do it for a community that I'm passionate about. And I actually created the first version like in the back of the car. I was on a road trip with my parents, and I was in the back of my car. A couple hours, I built the first prototype of there. It's relatively straightforward given some of the stuff that I've built before. And I got it approved by Strava, and I posted it on Reddit. I didn't do it under my name or anything, and it just kind of blew up, and everyone was using it and loving it and sharing it, and kind of took on a life of its own from there.
Was the goal to monetize it, or was the goal to just put out a cool product and let people have some fun?
Yeah, good question. I think at first the goal was just to build something fun. I was kind of taking this idea of saying like, what would it look like for like your favorite meme Instagram accounts, like your boy Scott Jurek, like if that Instagram account was going to create a piece of software or like an interactive online experience, what would that look like? So that's kind of my mindset here. And I've expanded that to think about, okay, how do I view myself as like a creator in this space? But instead of creating a podcast, right, like podcasts like you are, or YouTube videos or other mediums like that, like code is my medium, and I can create these kind of drops of individual projects, experiences, and things like that. So I just wanted to create it as something fun for the community. One other thing is, this was around, so I first created the project about a year ago, and it was actually right before athlete intelligence came out. Like a lot of folks were starting to talk about like AI in coaching. And with my experience in AI, I was like, okay, this is going to, like, AI coaching will be a thing, but I think this is going to be really controversial. I just want to create something genuinely fun and additive, and I don't want it to like have to do with performance. Like I want it to have to do with, but like in a fun way, and kind of add some levity and entertainment, and give people something that they actually want to share and have fun with.
I love it. Okay, so let's dive into the use of AI in the outdoor space. We've talked a bit about the ability to work with brands and help brands understand how they can use AI. I am using AI constantly. I talked about it on a recent podcast as well with Camila Barcenas. We recorded this yesterday, and I was like, I use ChatGPT as my like chief of staff. It knows everything about me. It's my chief financial officer. It's my chief marketing officer. It's my chief sales, like all of these different functions. Like I can tell it, I can ask, rank what is the best use of my time? Like the challenge is like, we don't want to get to a place where we're not thinking anymore. And when we use it as a thought partner, that's where it can be extremely powerful. So, I was using it as like a way to model out my personal finances and looking at angel investments and like the potential impact of like what happens if this company goes to 100 million or 300 million or a billion. Like, and what does adding an extra 5K or 10K to the angel investment do on the upside, or what is the advisory like? And so the ability to do math and like long form math. I was doing a proposal for a brand who wants to buy within the Long Run Labs Collective, and I have 14 podcasts that are included in a like test, grow, scale model. And I have a calculator, like a CPM and cost calculator that's looking at the audio impressions, the social impressions, and the newsletter impressions. And so like I can work with the tool to basically shift one podcast from scale back into grow, or grow into scale, or like tell me. So just like I spent 2 hours doing this yesterday, and I feel like if I had to do it all myself, it would have been like 2 days worth of work.
Totally.
So when you're first thinking about the use of AI for outdoor brands, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah. So I think no matter what space I'm talking about AI, and I think of it in kind of these three phases. So the first phase that I always say is like experiment. Like you have to kind of explore with this like kind of like childlike wonder and just like see what's possible. I don't know, John, do you remember like the first time you ever used ChatGPT or used like some generative AI product or experience?
I wish I did remember, but I was playing between Gemini, Grok, and ChatGPT, kind of like not sure which one I wanted to make my home.
Yeah. But that, I think that's the first important step, is just that experimentation, that exploring, right? There are a lot of options now. See what's possible. And I don't know, I think folks are kind of in a variety of places, and it might be scary to start that exploration, but I would say try to overcome that and just explore. And maybe the next time you want to go Google something or research something, if you haven't yet spent time with ChatGPT, what would it look like to use ChatGPT, and see what's possible? I think one of the best use cases is, and kind of classic ones, even for folks who are a little questionable on AI, is just saying like, hey, I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. Can you help me rewrite this, or give me 5 different ways to rewrite this sentence? So then again, it's acting as this partner, this creative inspiration. So that's the first step, is explore, experiment, see what's possible, see what's out there. The next step is really actually applying it to your work. So instead of like these one-off use cases, it's like, okay, what's a little bit more repetitive? Like, what's a task that you have to do frequently? And is there a tool that exists to help with it, an AI tool that exists to help with it? Or is there, can you kind of like set up some prompts that you're reusing for the same kind of things over and over again? So for you, you use an AI scheduling tool, right? Like that's a really good
Shout out to
example.
Sketch. You're amazing.
Yeah. Like I noticed that right away when we were scheduling this call. I was like, you're there, right? And I'm sure that it was a great experience for me. Some people who might not be familiar with that might catch them off guard. I don't know if you've gotten different responses to that, but it takes away so much time that you would have to spend like going back and forth with scheduling. So that's a really great example. Another one example that I love that's like, I think pretty easy, is start recording your meetings, start recording your calls, and then turn those into notes, or ask questions, or like upload them and ask questions against them. And then there's also like this idea of creating a few prompts that you can reuse for common tasks. Maybe there's a specific type of email you have to do that's like not completely templated, needs to be a little bit maybe more personalized, and that's going to depend, right? Like I can give you ideas, but you're the one who understands your workflow best and where you're doing things that are repetitive. So when I'm working with folks, I'll like come in and I'll say like, let's just like talk through your day and your week and the work you're doing, and let's find some task that is this mix of repetitive and creative, and figure out how we can maybe speed that up or take some time away from it so you can do the more human things, the things that you actually enjoy doing. And that's like a segue into the third category that I'll say, the third step, which is, okay, you're starting to integrate some of these tools. Let's take it from, you have a prompt that you like to reuse, to let's actually build some custom tools. Like let's work together to do that. Or you can even do that on your own with something like GPTs in ChatGPT, right? Very simple, very, very approachable, but will make a difference as compared to just going into a blank new ChatGPT chat. And I know there are plenty of folks who are already doing this as ways to experiment, right? I know someone we both know, David Callahan from Ultra Sign Up. We've been talking about this for a while, and they have a GPT that he was showing me that they use to help write descriptions and find information about races, to help just make those pages as detailed and high quality as possible. So then it's just taking away some of that research, right, that someone would have had to manually spend a lot of time doing, curating that information and helping that information get out there.
Can you talk more about that chief of staff example and why it's so effective to use a GPT model in something like that, where everything I've shared with it, because like I literally asked it, like I was like, should I have a different environment? Because I know people set up different environments for a marketing side, a finance side, or like the different use cases of the chat. And I asked it, and it said no. As long as you're okay with me knowing all of these different things and being able to reference them, it's way more valuable to have one environment, not 5 different environments. So why is that so effective, and how is it synthesizing everything that I've been sharing with it over the last couple of years into this extremely useful and precise guidance?
Yeah. So a few different thoughts here. I think the first thing is, like, when we talk about these large language models, they were trained on the entire internet, everything that's out there. So they have this really kind of wide knowledge base, right? And they're these AI models have expertise in all these different areas. So instead of having to go to this person or that person, it's kind of a central base with that general understanding. But then also, we know as entrepreneurs, as folks who have businesses, when you're making a decision, there's a lot of things that play, and it is interfacing, right? And think about how a company, a scaled up company, works. Like, yes, there are different teams with different specialties, but they do have to coordinate, right? The product team has to coordinate with the marketing team to make sure that the press release goes out at the right time and they're talking about the right thing and promoting the right features. So when you keep that all together, when you're talking to, again, we keep using ChatGPT as the example, but there's so many other options out there. To have that background is super important, rather than you having to constantly reshare that information. So if you had a separate, let's say, marketing GPT or marketing set AI setup, you have to constantly share the product information back over instead of if it already had access. The way these like memories and personalization work, specifically, we can talk about ChatGPT, is it's relatively straightforward. And this is something I've personally been thinking about with our company and folks have been thinking about for a while, which is like this idea of a knowledge base. And the way ChatGPT generally works right now is, as you're just using it, as you're having conversations, it's going to kind of save snippets or summarize or paraphrase a conversation that you're having, or a key learning that it might have, and then it'll save that in its sort of knowledge base. And this is something that you can go in and see actually what it's stored about you, and then it'll use those memories to inform the things that it's saying in the future. And I think there's a long way to go with that, and a lot of improvement that'll come on the personalization and the memories side of things. Especially something I'm interested in is what would it look like to have a reusable memory base that can go from, you were talking before about, you felt like you needed to pick between ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, but what would it look like to be able to use the best of each and bring those memories and that background information from one to the other without having to constantly paste it or say it again?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, the fact that it can remember those types of things and then reference so I use it, as you were talking about, for the mix of creativity and repetitiveness. I do a lot of pitching. I write a message and I recycle it a handful of times. And so then I go back and I do it again. And so it remembers how I'm writing it. And it's gotten to a point where it no longer looks like it's written by AI, because it's not. Like, the best example of this, I spent 2 weeks writing an essay on Substack on the New Blood era. So basically, I worked at Insight Tracker for 10 and a half years. I spoke to 20,000 customers over that time. I have tons of knowledge in my brain about directionally where have we come from and where are we going when it comes to personalized nutrition. And now working at Eternal, or advising Eternal, and seeing another way to go about it, but also seeing Aura and Whoop and all these options. I had so many thoughts in my head. And so I wanted to sit down and write, and I didn't even know where to start. So I sat down and I said, I want to write an article about XYZ. Here's my background. Here are the brands that I think are interesting in the space. Give me 20 questions to answer, and I will answer them, and then we will turn it into an essay. And so I wrote the thing via these prompts, and then it assembled it into an essay. And then I constantly asked, like, what are we missing? What else are we missing? How would this be perceived if you were an executive at Insight Tracker, right? I didn't want to smear my former employer. And at the same time, I felt like there was a lot missing in the value proposition. So I wanted it to feel and be perceived as, this is a neutral, but there's a desire to want to be better. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to be too biased towards Eternal, the place that I'm spending time with now, but that's where I feel the future is headed. So I have to be, so it was able to give me feedback on the tone of what I had written and how it would be perceived by people at different spaces. And you could say, okay, well, your brain could do that, which is true, but again, we're looking at the efficiency aspect of it. And so I went back and forth, and ultimately I spent 2 weeks producing this piece of content. And I
Mhm.
spoke with a few people about it, and they were like, wow, it's clear you spent a ton of time like putting your thoughts together. And it
Yeah.
was a really cool way to do it because it allowed me to think extremely critically about this topic and then be creative, but also extremely precise in what I was trying to say.
I love that. That's something I do all the time. If I'm writing an email, I'll kind of write it by hand and then I'll say, okay, like here's my goal with this email. Here's the like what I want the recipient to feel or what I want them to do for me after they read this email. Like how can we shape it in that way? I love the workflow that you just kind of mentioned though. One, I'll give some ways that like I would like level that up a little bit. One thing that is huge that I'm curious if you use is voice to text, or do you ever do recordings or talk to
I
ChatGPT?
don't.
So that's something that I think is still feels a little weird to some people, but is going to be huge because we know, and as you know, what was really important in your use case was answering all these questions, getting everything that was in your mind down on paper. But you can talk so much faster and maybe more eloquently and naturally than you can type. Right? Like I don't know how often I'm writing and I'm like my hands can't even type as fast as my mind is thinking. There are tons of tools out there that do this, but I actually use speech to text for like everything I do. So I have an app called Whisperflow on my laptop that prompting is one of the biggest things that I use it for, but really for anything. And then take that even a step further, which is ChatGPT has a voice mode where you can go completely back and forth with voice. So you're speaking and ChatGPT, the AI, is speaking back to you. So it can actually even feel like you're having a conversation back and forth. So this again is maybe a little odd to some people, but I'll walk around the neighborhood like on my morning walk and think of have like the project that I'm working on or some idea I'm thinking through, and I'll literally have a conversation with ChatGPT, with the AI as I'm walking around. And using that, kind of combining this idea with what you were just talking about is a great way to get even more context and more information from your brain kind of onto the page. And also use that for learning as well. Like if there's a topic I'm learning about or a conversation I want to practice in role play, I'll use that voice mode a lot too.
Another way that I've used it is asking questions that I'm like embarrassed to ask another human
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter, right? So I was going back and forth on Sunday about like my planning for my podcast for 2026 and
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like business planning. And my podcast is not the largest podcast by any means. It's quite small compared to some of the others, even in the podcast collective that I work with. Like it's in the bottom third, which I've done 400 episodes, and I drive more revenue on that podcast than most of the other podcasts that are out there,
Yeah.
with an audience that's a half to a third of them. And so like I fed it a bunch of data around like my P&L since 2021 and my growth trajectory and the just like a bunch of economic related information. And
Mm-hmm.
I had it analyze it with the question of like, what is the, basically like, do I even need to think about growth, audience growth? And the answer was just like, no, you've clearly differentiated and have an extremely high trust audience. Shout out to the
Yeah.
people that are listening. This is you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. And it comes down to quality. And so like everything I do, it like totally shifted my perspective around I should not think about mass scale and I should not think about trying to make something for everyone. I should keep thinking about trying to make something for myself. And like I wanted to have this conversation with you so we could do a deep dive on AI and angel investing and this type of stuff. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't care if anybody else listens to it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I would do it if nobody listened to it is probably a
Yeah.
better way to say it. I would produce it, I would publish it, and I would share it out there because I think that at least one other person will find it interesting. That's a much better way to say it. And for me, that's the whole point of the all of this content creation. Like, I'm creating it for myself and for other people who are interested in things like me, like what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And there's like a really strong opportunity to share with a very small amount of people who have quite similar interests. I don't know. So it's just like it was fascinating to get that pushback from a question that I didn't really want to ask another human. Now that
Yeah.
I'm talking about it in a podcast that hundreds of
Yeah.
people are going to listen to, like why am I so obsessed with growth and numbers and metrics? And it was basically
Yeah.
like, you don't need to be. You can run a successful business focusing entirely on quality instead of scale. And it was just like
Yeah.
really interesting pushback.
Yeah. I think that brings up a few thoughts for me, which is like everything, like it's going to give really great advice, but it's not always going to be right. So you need to kind of approach everything that you're getting with a critical lens in the same way you would any information you learn from a podcast or find anywhere else online, right? Be critical and thoughtful about it and check in on that. Don't lose the humanity. And then I think on that point of not losing the humanity, I think it's really easy for folks to be like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. It's going to take away this and that. And yeah, I think we have the right to do that and to think in that way. And it's certainly something I'm thinking about all the time. But rather than kind of being a downer on that, I view it in the way it sounds like you are, and I hope everyone else will, which is that no, you want to focus on having the conversations and meeting really great people and making an impact on the community and that stuff that really is human. And how can you use AI and technology and automation to speed up the other things that are a little more monotonous that just kind of need to get done in order to support the work that you love doing.
Definitely.
And then I'll just bring it back once more to Roast My Strava, which is, yeah, that was my whole idea. The same way you were saying, you create the podcast that you want to listen to. I was like, I just want to create something fun for my friends. And that's, I think, what we call founder market fit when you are kind of can be the consumer and understand the market and the user base really
I
well.
love that. The founder market fit. I think it's such a, like, you have to know who you're building for, right? And so I'll bring it back to Eternal, right? So Alex Mather, the CEO of Eternal, you can listen to our conversation earlier this summer on this podcast. But he was head of product at Strava, and then he founded and sold The Athletic, and now he's created Eternal, and it's just like the perfect model of everything that he's done for himself and people like him. And I mean that in a good way, right? So for him, Strava was a way to connect with community and to help enhance people's experience with running and cycling. With The Athletic, he's a huge sports fan, and so he really just wanted great journalism as it relates to sports, particularly the Eagles, which pains me as a Boston boy. But anyway, I haven't told him about the time I was in the Eagles facility and had a sales meeting with like 17 of their performance experts. And I was like 24 years old, and I was sitting in the room like with the team doctors and the team dietitians. And I was like so over my head. Anyway, and then Eternal is the way to like put it all together and do it for as long as you possibly can. And so I feel like people that build for that type of market fit, they know who their customer is, they know who their user is. Yeah. You can't fail, because unless you're a total unicorn, there are other people that will appreciate, what you're building.
Absolutely. And I think when we think of the endurance and outdoor space, almost every founder that I come across has that story or has that similar experience.
Definitely. Okay, so I think a lot of people listening are at a brand in marketing, or they're building something on their own. So let's have two separate flows of the next conversation around if you're at a large brand and you're in marketing, how would you think about the use of AI?
Yeah, I think it follows that same framework that I was saying before, right? Think of what you're really good at in your job and what you just kind of dread and put off, and how do you use AI to help those things. So you're probably writing a lot of content and copy, and some of that might be a little bit monotonous, or there's certainly creativity to it, but you might have more enjoyment like working with the individual creators that your brand is working with, or getting out there and actually talking to the users, or thinking of some new creative campaign. So how do you use AI? How do you go to ChatGPT and kind of set up a little base where you have a conversation, give it the background on the project that you're working on, your company, and it has that background like you were talking about before. So it becomes this reusable knowledge base with the background on your work and what you're doing. And then every time you're writing something, you have this assistant there for you to help you write. And it can be anywhere in the process. And someone should really do, this is kind of coming to my mind right now, is maybe we should explore this, but like I want to know how many folks are already here and how many have never even started thinking about AI before in the space, because then my advice is obviously going to be slightly different for everyone. So use it for those writing tasks. Come back around to it. I really think that's the best thing. And then it's also when you need a creative partner, or when you're running against the wall, trying to figure something out, and someone isn't available, or maybe you're on a really small team and you're the only person leading marketing. Okay, cool. And like now you have an extra team member who can talk through anything with you. And I think that's really exciting. And then again, you take it to the next level, which is, okay, what are we doing that's a little bit more repetitive? How do we build a system so the AI can learn like how we actually like to communicate? So an example of that would be years ago, and I was managing the customer support for our company, for our product, right? We had tons and tons of users. And I built this system that took in every handwritten response, email response that I had written. It had documentation of our product, of our company, of our policies. And now to this day, we're continuing to use a version of that system to write responses to our users as they come in, and everyone is looked at by a human, right? There's a human touch on all of them. We're putting information in and we're editing it, but it's speeds us up so much and has saved us so much time. This brings to mind another example, which is, I don't know if you've noticed this before. I just noticed this a couple of weeks ago. The feed actually uses an AI auto responder to, is it Matt at the feed? Is that what the...
I think so. Matt, yeah, the CEO. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you respond to one of those emails, or it was while David was running Javelina, I got a message, one of the, they're like, David is doing a series there, and I got a message and I responded. I was like, love this, but like David's running, haha. And I got the auto, and that was how I found out that they were using AI to respond. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I love that they've done that, and I really actually want to learn more about how they got there. Have you noticed that before? Or did you see that, or were you aware of this?
I wasn't aware of the fact that the reply was AI powered, but I've interacted with this quite a lot with HubSpot, with the customer service of HubSpot, where they try and triage. You can write them an email, and they'll try and triage the email with, like, they'll write a response, they'll refer you to knowledge base articles, and you can hop onto a chat with them and they can go through it. That's more than just like the drop down, pick 3 option, menu option type things. And 90% of the time, the AI is able to resolve the problem that I'm having, which is fantastic. The only downside is that previously this was responded to by a human, and the human would often just do the fix for you, but the AI is not doing the fix for you. It's just telling you how to do it.
Yeah. This brings up one other interesting opportunity, and specifically, I think this is a good one for folks who are maybe on like the marketing side of things, which is one way to think about AI is it gives everyone capabilities and skills that they might not have personally had before. So one of the best examples for that is the ability to write code and create things, right? So at first you had to write code line by hand, and then along the way, I mean, tons of packages and things, but we'll do this for simplicity's sake, right? Then there are things like Bubble and Webflow that are kind of like these website builders. Well, now we're kind of taking the next step, and you can go on to, I think Claude would be a really good example of how to do this. And you can use natural language, talk for a few minutes about like the website or like a simple web app that you envision, and it can actually create that for you. Or you can use a platform like Lovable or Rourke for creating like a prototype of a new website or a feature that you're ideating on, even if you didn't have those technical skills. And of course, you need to be careful about how you're deploying that and using that. But just as an experimental creative tool, that's super valuable because that was something that wasn't you weren't able to do before.
So I used to have a custom built website by my friend Tony with a Sony.
Yeah.
And then I moved to WordPress, and I was able to basically do drag and drop via Elementor, which is one of these packages that makes it really simple. But there was still stuff that I wanted to hard code, and I have no coding skills whatsoever. But with ChatGPT, I sure do. I could tell it what I want. But I just migrated my website to via Beehive, and so Beehive is where I've hosted my newsletter. And they just had this mega release of 10 different products last week, and one of them was an AI website builder. You can type in what you want. You can type in how to move things. For someone who's non-tech enabled, like not good at coding, I find the even the template builder stuff like very challenging and not intuitive, and like the places where you need to click on a button, it just doesn't make sense to me. And so it's as simple as like move this down, or like make the colors match, or make this SEO it was crazy. And so now you can go to forthelong.run and look at the website that I built from there.
Love it. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but Beehive is something that we both share. Tyler, the founder there, is great, and I really love what they're doing in the space. They actually acquired a company, I think, that was leading the AI website building part of what they're doing.
Oh, is that how they did that? I applied to a job there this spring. I wanted to work there, but I didn't get it, and I'm glad I didn't, because I've been in a better place now.
Yeah,
but
now you're
I love that program. I just wish I had the ability to buy stock in it when I first met them in 2022. They're on a freaking rocket ship, huh?
Totally, really impressive. And I think that's one of the most fun things here, right? So like there are all these cool companies that are building great things that we can use. You can start creating things. The like cost of creating software is going down, which is a really kind of interesting thing to think about. And I think that was one of the things that I wanted to show when in some of the products and projects that I'm working on, is that you can be this like one person team and build things that are used by thousands and tens of thousands and more people. And that just wouldn't have been possible before the past few years.
Totally. So we talked about the best ways to use AI if you're on the brand or marketing side. Would that guidance change at all if you were a founder or a solo operator running a company or building a company?
I think it's relatively the same, because so many people will come to me and they want like exact answers, but it really comes down to the tasks that you're doing and applying these tools to them. I think as a solo founder, or as a founder, a small team member on a small team, you're doing such a wide variety of tasks, right? Like you were talking about that before. You're writing, your finance, your product, your right? You're doing everything. So I think that we're in this golden age sort of where these small teams can do so much, and that's how we built our company. As well, which is, I like to say all the time, like we're not just building AI tools, Hyperite, for other people. We're actually building a company that's powered by AI, whether it's the example that I was giving before of like helping to write responses to users, or writing content, or writing the code on the literal product, and so many other examples. We've been able to do that with a much smaller team, and thus less capital and resources than would have previously been needed maybe a few years ago. And that's continuing to change super, super quickly, right? Like, I don't know when this is going to come out, but today, like Google just released their new Gemini model. Last week, OpenAI released a new model. And I think sometimes as like, if you're like not super technical, it might be hard to see how they're continuing to improve, and maybe it goes up and down in certain skills, but it's continuing to improve from everything I've seen. And it's exciting, and you just gotta, sometimes there's so much that it's like, how do you keep track of it all?
One thing that I find to be the most important piece is the quality of the prompts. And
Yeah.
I'd love your guidance on, or your thoughts on, like how to ask strong questions. And then one of my favorite questions is, what am I missing, or what are you missing? Can you talk
Yeah.
about why that is effective as well?
Yeah, totally. So right, like these models have a world view. So an example of how that comes into play is, let's say I'm right, like if you're an entrepreneur, a founder, a generalist, and you have all these different things. Okay, let's say I'm working on design for something, and I'm not an expert designer. I can kind of like hack things together, but I'm not. So I can actually say, "Hey, ChatGPT, I want you to." Like, who's a designer I look like? I want you to act like Steve Jobs, and we're going to work together, right? So then the model, because like you've said, this is in the mindset of, right, that's in the context of Steve Jobs, or whoever you bring up, and you can kind of do that in different areas. So that's one example I really like. Something else that I think not enough people really think about, or maybe haven't heard about before, is kind of giving examples, right? So let's say you're coming here for the first time, and you've come up with one of these kind of like flexible, repetitive, creative tasks that I've sort of alluded to. Giving a few examples of like really good quality, high quality emails or writing that you've done before is going to, right? Because essentially what these models are doing is kind of pattern matching, and they can do this pattern matching at a much higher level than any human can do. So if you give it a few examples, it's going to pick up on things that you or I might pick up on that are similar between those examples, but it's going to pick up on other themes too. So I love the giving examples, right? And this used to be way more important, but as models have gotten better, I think people aren't doing this as much. It used to be called few shot prompting, where you'd like give it a few examples. There are so many more. I think that the speech to text is the one that I love the most for people, because a lot of times it's not actually how you're like crafting the language. In my experience, it's how much information and context and details can you get in there, and by speaking, you can get so much more in there. There are way more like complicated ways to do prompting. Like you can write code, like use code to write your prompt, or write it in like XML or JSON. But like these are like, you don't need to do that. It's really just give it all the information it needs to be successful. Give it a few examples, ask questions, go back and forth. Even like little silly little things like, think really deeply before you respond to this, can actually like elicit a different response. And again, it comes back to this experimentation. I think so many people will try to like sell you the like guide to prompting, or here's how to become the best prompter, or here's how, and maybe that's just like disappointing to people, some people who are listening, that I don't have all the answers. But really, you have to experiment and learn. And I think the reason I push that is because everything I've done and learned has come from learning, and I can share some of these ideas and concepts. But by experimenting, you're going to find like what prompts and what little bits work best for you, just like you had those examples.
Awesome. I want to switch topics to another one that we talked about prior to recording, but is there anything that we missed on the AI side that you want to add in?
I think it's just re-emphasizing that those three steps, which is start experimenting, start exploring, get curious, even if it's scary, then start thinking about ways you can build processes, some of these repeatable tasks, and then find other tools that are out there, whether it's recording your meetings and getting notes, and then I work with folks all the time on like building these like little custom systems that enable them to, not have to paste the same prompt in every, like it's like simple things, or build a knowledge base of all the examples before that can then be used to inform how you're writing. So I think that's one. And then I'll throw one other unique thing, which is, maybe this is a hot take, but I think every brand and company has the ability to be a software company or have some sort of software or web presence. And we don't need to like blow that out of proportion, but I believe that you can use AI to create websites or digital experiences. And this is sort of a thesis that I was testing with Roast My Strava and some other examples of projects that I've been working on. Some are like out there in the world and people don't even know that I'm behind them. But it's like, can you build like a digital experience that people can interact with, that's attached to your brand, that people are genuinely going to want to share, right? And that's like, you talk about affiliate programs all the time. Like that's a great way to get people to share. But like if people are interacting with someone, and instead of just like an Instagram thing that they're scrolling past or something they're listening to, like giving them an actual experience that they can interact with is really cool, and an opportunity for brands.
What's an example of that?
Yeah, totally. So I have a few different examples. One interesting example might be like the feed. They have like, I mentioned them before, but this is the example that comes to mind. Like they have a few of these pages of like their athletes and the people and the like the products that they use. But what would it look like for the feed to create, like as a product, some sort of link in bio, like this is my feed stack, and like here are all the products that I use. That's actually like an experience that anyone can use, whether you're like an athlete sponsored or just like me, right? People all the time, like I'm asking my friends all the time, like, what are the products you use? And then that's also something shareable that people will want to like share if you can make it a cool experience. I think there are also ways like both taught, like we can go back to Ultra Sign Up, which of course is like a digital web experience. But I think there are a lot of cool ways to use AI there, that are like, what's a good example? Like, let's say creating like like a shareable graphic for every race after you finish, that you can like generate, that like you can programmatically generate like this cool shareable graphic that contains like your time and other details and what have you. And that's like something that people can interact with that's beyond the time, right? They're just like signing up and doing the race. And I have like, I love thinking about this. I'm thinking about this all the time. So I always have different examples.
I got to connect you to Phil from Brooksy because the Laurel technology is getting to a place where it can do one of those types of things you were talking about. And then I got connected to a brand called Rendezvous, and it's a how do you describe this? It's like exactly what you're talking about as it relates to the feed. It's, you have a profile and you have your top recommendations for gear as it relates to run, ski, fish, climb, or apparel, nutrition, etc. I have a page on there, rendezvous.co/Jonathan-Levitt. You can take a look at that. It's still being built out. But the model is interesting because they've set up affiliate relationships with all these brands. Yeah. And so they're incentivizing athletes and creators to create these platforms that you put link in bio, and you go and you see my John G Trail half tights, Puma Velocity, Nitro 4, and Precision PF30 gel. Like those are the top 3 of the 10 items that are listed. And you can buy any of those things and you get what you're looking for, and I get 5% or 7.5% or whatever it is. And the brand makes a good amount of incremental revenue as well. So it's these models where everybody wins, although I guess the consumer's not getting a discount, but they're still able to see, like, anybody who would click to this website is looking to see recommendations from someone that they trust. And so in theory, like, they're not needing a discount, they're just needing recommendations.
Yeah. And then I think I want to like take it even a step further, which is like those are the useful examples, but then you can do it purely from like a marketing engagement. I think so. It's going to depend on the brand, and I need to go back and look at my list of ideas. I should have come prepared with a few more. Um, but yeah, how can you create an experience that people can actually interact with rather than just passively taking in content?
Let's pivot to a 10-minute discussion on angel investing. I realize my next call is at 15 and not 30. The fundraising and the financing of all of this.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience in this space and what is firing you up as it relates to the outdoor industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of calls back to my experience actually raising money, right, for the first time for OtherSide AI. It was pretty just a few years out of college. My co-founder Matt dropped out of college when we started the company. We didn't have any experience. We were just going for it, and we learned a lot. We raised money from a bunch of angels, from a few VC funds, and we've learned a lot. And I think the topic that we want to talk about is the idea of angel investing. And one of the coolest things is that our angel investors often have a greater impact on the company than the large funds, right?
Because they're strategic.
Because they're strategic. So I think there are two different buckets that I'd put them in often. One is like they have an audience that is really primed for whatever you are building, and you want them bought in, right? Because you're going to be paying for influencers and creators and partnering with creators. But if you can have them actually in like literally invested in the success of the company, that distribution, I think distribution is the most
Yeah.
important thing to think about these days. That distribution is worth so much. So for example, my co-founder Matt and I, he has almost 100,000 followers who are into AI on Twitter. So now we get a lot of folks reaching out who have seen what we've done, and that we've kind of led the way in what some of these models are capable of doing. And they are interested in us for two reasons. One is like, okay, Matt has this distribution. I have a little bit of a following on LinkedIn, and between us, we have that. But then also, the one thing I love about the idea of working with angel investors is you can get folks who are maybe a step or two beyond you, so like a fellow founder on your cap table, and they're the ones again who are closest to the experiences that you're actually having. So when you're in a moment of crisis or and like spiraling or something, like they're the ones you're actually going to call up because they've been through it, and they're going to have the most helpful feedback because they're closest to the actual experience that you're having. It's also a really good way to get like a wide variety of experts on your side, right? So maybe someone who has an expertise in something that you don't really have. So that way, when you need to bring someone on or hire someone, they can help you vet that person or bring that person on or make recommendations. And I think when you're doing early angel investing, like, yeah, of course you hope that the company is a success, but you're not necessarily doing it for the financial results. Or at least you have to go in knowing that if they all go to zero, it could be okay.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a fascinating space. It's something that I've had some exposure to recently. And I tweeted the other day something along the lines of like, I have 10 to 15 people that I share deals with. I see a handful of interesting things each month, and let me know if you're interested. And a bunch of people responded. And if you're listening to this and this is explaining you and you're interested in reviewing these types of deals in the health and fitness and tech space, definitely message me or email me, john@forthelong.run, and I'm happy to add you to that distribution list as well. But one of the questions that came in was like, how do you find these deals and how do you make decisions on whether to move forward? So question for you, Jason, how do you answer those questions?
Yeah, great questions. I think how do you find them? It's by being just active and out there and a figure in the space, right? Like if you're not putting yourself out there, it's not just going to come to you. I can't tell you how many examples I have of times I just like that the cold outreach was the thing that led to everything. Um, like I think you and we had a bunch of mutual friends, but I just reached out to you and I was like, hey, like here's what I'm thinking about. Here's where we overlap. Um, so the more you're out there, the more opportunities people will come to you, right? Like maybe someone who's listening is like an executive at a bigger outdoor or endurance brand, and maybe they should start writing a Substack or a Beehive, actually, rather, as we were talking about before, or like tweeting about their experience. And then, okay, I'm a founder and I see, oh, this marketing executive from insert brand, it really knows what they're talking about. I'm going to ask for their advice on how to approach branding. And then, okay, now you have this connection and you can just talk to them about that. I think there are other interesting ways. Like, I think I love what you've mentioned, right? Everyone talks about like deal flow, right? That's really what this question is how do you get deal flow? So it's one thing I would say is how do you, there are two sides to this. One is how do you, as someone who wants to start making angel investments, let's say, find the folks like John who have those opportunities and can kind of play matchmaker there. Like you can play matchmaker there a little bit, John. But then there's an interesting opportunity. I don't know if you've thought about this before, but is what would it look like for you, John, to raise a bit more money that you then allocate into startups? Because that might enable you to have more, more liquidity than you would as an individual, because people recognize that you have these. And then the folks who give you, like, let's say you get, I don't know, 20 folks to give you 50K or something like that, just for simple math, then you can start deploying that into, 20, 40 different startups. And then when you do that, you can, these folks who also are participating, you can say, hey, we have this opportunity. And if you want to put an additional check in, this is what they're open to, or they're looking for this expertise to bring on an individual angel investor that has this expertise. I think that's great. And then also just like reach out again. I'll bring it back around. Reach out to people. You see someone working on something cool, reach out. Like, I've had so many folks reach out to me that have, led to friendships, angel investments, advising, everything, including in this space. So I was at the Strava Developer Summit a few weeks ago, and from that, I had a bunch of folks reach out to me who are working on interesting things, kind of at the intersection. Mainly what I'm doing is software and AI related, but in the running and outdoor space. And then, yeah, I think those are that's what I'm thinking about these days.
And how do you make decisions, right? Because if you're doing VC investing, you're reviewing financials and you're reviewing, you're looking in the shorts of the founder and like a deep dive into it. And I think I like to explain angel investing as more vibes based. You're just betting on people. Like I have a friend, Phil, the CEO of Brooksy, and I describe Phil as someone I would follow into a burning room if he told me that was the path that we should take, because I have just like blind faith in him, and based on everything that he's done and every piece of evidence I have suggests that if Phil says walk into this burning room, there's a good reason that you should walk into the burning room.
Totally. And I think I agree with you. It is a little bit of vibes based. You're investing, especially at a very early stage, you're investing in the person, the founder, the team, and right, because they're going to pivot and change what they're working on so many times, especially in the early stages. So you're investing in them, and hopefully it's because you have like a track record with them before, you've seen what they've done before. Everyone loves investing in second time founders, and now that I've kind of made it through and kind of doing everything I've done, I understand why. It's because you can learn so much better. And again, this relates to why I say experimentation with AI is the way to go, because you just learn so much more from making the mistakes and learning what works and experimenting and moving super quickly. So I really do think at the end of the day, it's about the person and do you believe in what this person is working on? Then you also can like evaluate their early product, right? I like to think that one of my areas of expertise is product and the way users are interacting with product, and then also the growth and growth marketing side of things. So those are things that I understand really well. So do I see either A, they have they've nailed the tech, but they need some like UI help, or like there's something behind, and like that's an opportunity where I can help, or they're nailing the product, and because I have an understanding of that space, I feel confident in the way that they're approaching it, and like hearing how they've pivoted in talking to them and how they've approached different situations makes me confident that when they inevitably reach something hard, that they're going to be able to make it through and succeed. And again, most of them are going to go to zero.
Yep. And on that note, Jason, this has been a blast. Like we said, we could go for many more hours. Maybe we'll have to go another round. Hopefully we can share some miles together at some point, and have another fun conversation soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's any folks who are thinking about how to best use AI, like I was saying, I think you have to experiment and you have to know your processes. So if that's something you're thinking about, I would love to talk through that with you and think of some creative ways to bring AI, like really thoughtfully, into the work you're doing while preserving what really makes everything we do human and important.
And how can people find you?
You can just search for my name. LinkedIn is a good one. I'm pretty easy to find. I think LinkedIn is good. Strava too, honestly. Send me a DM on Strava.
Love it. Jason, this has been a blast. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.